Gittin Daf Vav. We begin the last few lines in Daf Nun Hey. The Gemara launches into the narrative about the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim, which will continue for several Daf. The Gemara begins with a pasuk. Asher Mefached Talmid Amak Shaliba Yipol Bara. Praiseworthy is the one who is in fear of at all times, but the one who hardens his heart will come to harm. So the Gemara says that this is the introduction. Now we're going to talk about three stories in which a tragedy came about because people didn't think about what was going to happen. They weren't mafachet, or they weren't fearful of what the results were going to be. So first of all, you have the story of Kamsa bar Kamsa, which destroyed Yerushalayim. You have the story of the rooster and the hen, which destroyed Tur Malka, the mountain of the king. And you have the story of the side of a carriage, which destroyed Beitar, a very large city. And the Gemara is going to go through all of these headlines. So the first is the story of Kamsa bar Kamsa. The Gemara says there was a person by the name of the Gemara doesn't say his name, but he had a friend named Kamsa, and he had an enemy named Bar Kamsa, very similar names. This person made a big banquet, a Suda, and he told his servant, go and invite Kamsa, my friend, to join me. But the person accidentally went and brought Bar Kamsa. And when the host saw him sitting there, he said, Bar Kamsa, let's see, who are you? You are my enemy. Get up and get out of here. So Bar Kamsa said, don't embarrass me since I'm here already. Let me stay, let me finish it out, and I'll pay you for whatever I eat and whatever I drink. So he said, no, I'm not going to let you stay, get out of here. He said, I'll pay you half the value of the entire Suda. He said, no. He said, I'll pay you for the entire Suda. He said, no, picked him up, grabbed him, and threw him out. So Rakamsa obviously was embarrassed very publicly, and he said the Rabbanim were there at the Suda. They didn't say anything. Obviously, they were not bothered by it. It was acceptable to them. I'm going to go and I'm going to spread Lashon Hara against the Chum and against Klal Yisrael by the Caesar. And again, Yerushalayim was under Roman control at the time. So he went to the Caesar, whoever the Caesar was at the time, and he said, the Jews are rebelling against you. So Caesar said, how should I know? What's your proof? So he said, send them a carbon and see whether they bring it in the Beis Hamikdash. So he went and he sent a carbon. He sent a very fine chashav animal with Bar Kamsa to bring to Yerushalayim. And along the way, Bar Kamsa made a mum in it. And it was a mum which is a mum for us and not a mum for the goyim. It was either a nick in the upper lip or was a cataract in the eye. And he brought it, and the Chachamim obviously could not offer the carbon because it had a mum. On the other hand, they knew they couldn't send it back because the goyim would not consider it to be a mum. So they considered what to do. So they thought maybe we should bring it as a carbon even though it has a mum, in order we should be able to break the halacha because of the sakana here, in order to make sure that we have peaceful relations with the Romans. So, but Zachariah ben Avkila said if you do that, people are going to think, you can learn from here that an animal with a mum could be put on the mizbech. So the Rabbanan said, okay, maybe we'll kill Bar Kamsa, so he won't be able to report what happened over here. But Zachariah ben Avkila said, if you do that, people are going to say that somebody who makes a mum in a carbon gets put to death. We can't have people learn a wrong halacha. That would be the worst thing to happen here. So Rav Yochanan points out there, says, because of the humility of Zachariah ben Avkilis, of Rav Zachariah ben Avkilis, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, our house was destroyed, our heichel was burned down, and we were exiled from Eretz Yisrael. So the Gemara continues describing what happened. So the Gemara says that the message got back to Caesar, and he obviously was not happy, so he sent an army. So the first one he sent was Nero. So Nero was called Nero Caesar, Nero the Caesar. And as Nero approached Yerushalayim, he shot arrows towards the east, and it traveled towards Yerushalayim, and it fell. And then he shot one to the west, and it turned and landed in Yerushalayim. He shot in all four directions, and it turned and landed in Yerushalayim. This was a clear sign that he's going to be successful in this war. Then he went to, and he found a child, and he said, tell me what pasuk you're learning. And he said, I'll take my revenge against Edom through my people Yisrael. Meaning that Edom is going to destroy my people, but I'm going to punish Edom for what they did. So Nero said, you see, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to destroy his house. He wants to destroy the Beis Hamikdash, but then he wants to take revenge on me. He wants to wipe his hands on me. So he went and he ran away. He was Megayer, converted to Judaism, and Rav Meir was a descendant of him. Now, the Gemara continues, so they sent someone else. So they sent Aspasianus Vespasian to lead the army against the Jews. And he came and he set up a siege against around Yerushalayim for 3 years. Where says that there were very wealthy people in Yerushalayim at the time. They had enough food to supply Yerushalayim. The 3 wealthy men were named Nakdiman ben Gurion, ben Kalbasavua, and ben Tzitzis Akeses. The Gemara explains these names. Nakdiman is from the word Nokta, meaning to make a hole. that the sun made a hole in the clouds on his behalf. That was a story which is related elsewhere, where it's in Zachas Tainus, where he had made a wager with a guy that it would rain before the sun went down, and it seemed that the sun had gone down already because the clouds were thick, and therefore he was mispal and the clouds came through. Now, Ben Kalba Savua, which means the son of the hungry dog, was called that because whoever came into his house hungry as a dog left Savua. So Kalba, the dog, Savua, the full dog. Metzitzis HaKeses means that his tzitzis were only trailing on cushions because he only walked on very fine cushions, and others say because his cushion that he sat on was amongst the highest ranking nobles of Rome. Now, so these three rich men, they had enough money to support the entire city that was under siege for a long time. One said, I'm going to give wheat and barley. Another one said, I'm going to give wine, salt, and oil. Another one said, I'll give wood. The Chum gave special praise to the one who promised wood because you can't do much without wood, and because wood is required in high amounts relative to other things. Like we said, the brings proof to this. Rav Chisda gave all his keys to his servants except for the key to the woodshed, because he said in order to bake one storehouse full of wheat into bread, you need 60 storehouses full of wood to fuel the fire. So you had enough here. How much was all these supplies enough for to support Yerushalayim for 21 years? Very long time that could outlast any siege, but it was not to be. There was a group called the Biryonim. Biryonim were people who wanted to go fight the Romans, wanted to make war, and they argued with the Rabbanim as to what they are supposed to do. The Biryonim said, let's go fight, and the Chacham would not allow. The Rabbanim said, let's go make peace, and the Biryonim set up blockades, and they were armed, and they fought against the Rabbanim, and they would not allow them to go make peace, meaning to give in to the Romans. And when they said, let's go fight, the Chachamim said, it's not going to last. You're not going to win. So these Biryonim decided to force the people to fight, and in order to do that, they burned down all the storehouses of wheat, barley, and wood, and that way the people were starving, and they were now being forced to go fight. Now the Gemara describes how severe the lack of food was. The Gemara talks about the Marta Bas Baisos, one of the richest women in Yerushalayim, or the richest woman in Yerushalayim. So she sent a servant to the market, and she said, go bring me some bread made out of fine flour. So the servant went, but by the time he got there, the bread of fine flour was gone. It had already been sold. So he came back and he said, there's no more bread made out of fine flour, but there is regular white bread. So she said, okay, so go bring me the white bread. But he went and he came back and it was gone. And the same thing happened, and he said, there's no white bread, but there is coarse bread. She said, bring me that. That was also gone. And he said, but there is barley flour. She said, bring me the barley flour. And then that was also gone. And finally, she decided she's going to go herself. She didn't have any shoes on. She went herself to see if she could find some food. And she became nauseated on the way, and she died of nausea. What nauseated her? Either she stepped in some animal waste, or she ended up eating the fig of Rabbi Tzadok. Rabbi Tzadok was a chacham who fasted for 40 years, and he became so emaciated that he couldn't eat. All he could do was suck the juice out of a dried fig, and that fig was left behind, so she stepped on that fig. Now, that was what nauseated her, according to the second shot, and she died. Now, as she was dying, so she took all her gold and silver and threw it into the marketplace, and she said, what do I need gold and silver for? Fulfilling the pasuk that says, Kaspan b'chutzos yashlichu. It's in Yecheskel discussing the destruction of Beis Hamikdash and saying that the money will be worthless. Okay, back to the story. So the head of the Biryonim was someone who was named Abba Sikra. He was the nephew of Rav Yechon ben Zakkai, who was the leader of the Chachamim. He was the son of Rav Yechon ben Zakkai's sister. So Rav Yechon ben Zakkai sent him a message, listen, come to me in secret, I need to talk to you. So he came, Rav Yechon ben Zakkai says, how long is this going to go on for? Are you going to starve everybody and cause the deaths of all the people? You, Biryonim, you're not allowing us out, you're not allowing us to make peace. So Abba Sikra said, it's not under my control. If I say anything to the other Biryonim that's against what they want to do, they will kill me too. So Rav Yechon ben Zakkai said, okay, find a way for me to get out of the city, and maybe I'll be able to ease the situation a little bit. So Abba Sikra said, all right, here's the plan. Make yourself sick. Let everybody think that you are sick and dying. Let them come visit you, and they'll see. And then take something that smells very bad, like a rotting animal, put it near you, so people will smell the smell of death, and they'll say that you died, and then they take you out of the city to bury you, and have your Talmidim come and carry you out, and that way they'll take you out as if you died. Don't let anybody else carry it so that they won't see that you're very light, because a living person is lighter than a dead person. Okay. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai did as he was told, and it came Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua to carry the bed, and they carried it to the gates of the city. And the Briyanim at the gates wanted to stab Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai with spears to make sure he really was dead. So Abba Sikra said, what are the Romans going to say if you stab the head of the Chachamim? They're going to say the Jews stab the body of their own Rabbanim. So they wanted to give him a little shove. So he said, what are you going to say? The Romans are going to say that the Jews shove the Rav. So the Briyanim finally stopped either of them, and they opened the gate, and he was carried out. And then once he was out, of course, he sat up, and he was fine. And he said he came to the camp of the Roman besieging army, and he was brought to Vespasian, to Aspasianus, and he said, Shalom Alach Malka, peace upon you, king, peace upon you, king. So Vespasian said, all right, two things. First of all, I'm not the king, and you're making fun of me, so you get the death penalty for that. Second of all, if I am the king, what took you so long to come here? So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai answered him, that what you said, you're not a king, you are a king. You just haven't found out about it yet. You are going to be a king soon. If you wouldn't be a king, Yerushalayim would not be conquered by you. As it says, Halavanin ba'adir yipol, that Lavanin will only fall to the strong one. And the strong one here has to be a king, like it says, V'haya adiroi mimenu. Their ruler shall come from them. So here adir means a king. And Lavanan means the Beis HaMikdash, like it says, Hahara Taifazeh, V'halavanayin. Moshe calls it this fine mountain, and the Lavanan refers to the Beis HaMikdash. Now, Yochanan ben Zakkai now addressed the second thing he said, and if you ask me why didn't it come until today, the answer is that we have Briyanim. The Briyanim don't allow us to leave the city. So on that, Vespasian said if there was a keg of honey and it was a snake running after it, would you not break the honey so that the snake would leave? Of course you would. So if you have Yerushalayim that's being pursued or under the control of these Briyanim, so you should break Yerushalayim, break the walls, and that'll be the end of the Briyanim, meaning the Romans will come and get rid of the snake, they'll get rid of these Briyanim. Now, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai didn't answer. So it just seems to imply that he didn't have an answer. So Rav Yosef or Rabbi Akiva said, Meishiv Chachamim Mocha V'daitam Yisakel, that this was obviously Min HaShemayim, that they took away his Chacham and couldn't answer, quoting the Pasuk, which means Hashem turns the wise men back and makes their thinking foolish. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had a simple answer. He could have said, listen, if a snake was running after my honey, I would take the snake and kill the snake. It wouldn't kill the honey. I wouldn't destroy the honey. Meaning, I would have just waited for an opportunity to get rid of the Briyanim myself. I would not have had to let the Romans in to do the job for me. Okay, the narrative continues. In the meantime, a messenger came from Rome, and he said to Vespasian, stand up, because the Caesar has died, the king has died, and the senators in Rome appointed you as the new king. So you see, Rabbi Yochanan's prediction came true. Now, at the time of Vespasian, Aspasianus was only wearing one shoe. He tried to put on the other shoe, and it didn't go. He tried to take off the first shoe, and that wouldn't come off. So he said to Rabbi Yochanan, what's going on? Rabbi Yochanan said, don't worry about it. The reason your shoes don't fit is because you just received very good news. And when you hear good news, a person's body swells, and now your shoes don't fit anymore. They won't go on, they won't go off. So what should you do? Right? And he quoted a pasuk, Shmua Teva Tedashin Etzem. Good news fattens the bone. So what should you do? Bring someone you don't like here. That's going to cause your body to contract. Like it says, Ruach Necheya Tiyabish Gorim. A broken spirit dries the bones, and then your feet will return to normal size. You'll be able to wear your shoes. So that's what Vespasian did, and then he got his shoe on. So he said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, if you're so smart, why don't you come until now? And Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, I already answered that question. Vespasian said, I already answered you also. So he said, okay, listen, I'm going back to Rome. I'm the king now, I'm not the general, so I have to go back. Someone else is going to come to lead this army instead of me. Ask me for something that I can give you. I feel like I owe you something. Give me something here. So Rabbi Yochanan asked for three things. He said, first of all, I want you to spare the town of Yavne and its Chachamim. I want you to spare the family of Rabban Gamliel because it's descended from David HaMelech. He didn't say this, but it was descended from David HaMelech, and he wanted to save him. And I want you to spare of Tzaddik. Of Tzaddik, who we learned fasted for 40 years. Says Rav Yosef, or possibly Rabbi Akiva, about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai here again. He turns the smart man backwards and makes their thinking foolish. He should have said, leave, go home, spare the whole Yerushalayim. Says the Gemara, no, Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai thought he understood he would not have been able to do that. Vespasian would not have given that, or might not even have been able to give that, and therefore he said, let me at least save something. Now the Gemara discusses how did they save Rav Tzadok? How did the doctors treat Rav Tzadok? So the Gemara says on the first day they took water that had bran soaked in it, a little bit of nutrition, and he was able to handle that. The next day they gave him water that had soaked bran and a little flour. Next day they gave him water in which flour was actually mixed, and then they made it thicker and thicker until his intestines widened and he was able to take actual food, at least to some extent. The Gemara continues and says, when Vespasian left, Titus came to lead the armies against the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara skips to after the Churban happened. The Gemara says that when he broke through, he became profane and profaned against the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He took a zayin and took a harlot, and he went to the Kodesh HaKodashim, spread out a Torah scroll on the floor, and he did a ma'isa upon that Torah scroll. And then he took out a sword and he slashed at the parachas, the curtain hanging between the Kodesh and the Kodesh.